My name's Eli Delaney, and I have the honor of meeting some pretty cool people. These are the entrepreneurs, the artists, the creatives, the game changers that are making a positive impact in the people that they meet. And I'm a firm believer that the people that you meet can get you anywhere you want to go. And this show is my way of sharing them with you. It's my way of also helping you be cool people. All right, welcome back, everybody. Eli here, and today is a special day for the very simple fact that this is episode 100 of the Be Cool People Show. And I thought I would just do this as kind of a reflections point of some of the cool things that, some of the cool conversations that I've had with people in, the last, we're going to say the last 50 weeks, essentially. Now, some of those have been solo episodes, which have been really interesting. I didn't expect the solo episodes to actually take off the way they have, but I get some amazing feedback from those. So, I think I made it, if you've been listening for a while, you've heard that I said, once a month, I plan on doing a solo episode. There may be a little bit more than that, but the goal is to at least put one a month in there. Some of the other things that are going on in my head, we've had some crossover with the Seventh Fold project, which is really good because of the fact that it kind of puts you in a different mindset. We're not just talking with people, but how do we have better conversations with people, which is kind of the point of a lot of what Seventh Fold is about. But I wanted to take some time today and actually go through some of the big reflections, some of the big points that have come by in the last several episodes. I'm going to put this out right up front. These are just a few highlights. So I'm going to tell you, if your name does not come up on this list, I apologize. That just means that, we went through and it's like, okay, this was a common theme. This was a common theme. This is a common thing. And anybody who gets pointed out, that just happens to be somewhere it came into. So no slight to anybody that is not on this list, because all of you that are on the show, period, have been awesome. I appreciate you spending the time with me and being part of this. And it has been a fun journey. It really has been. If you heard the very first episode, I talked about this podcast was originally slated to go live in 2020. And I was in a really, really bad, dark place at that time. There was a lot going on in my life. Many of you know the story behind that. And so I sat on it. And I even recorded 5-6 episodes at least. And they never went live because I was just not in the right place. And the interesting thing is when I looked at coming back into doing this, which was in 23. Yeah, because... Has it been 23? Oh, it was November 22nd of 23. Yeah. I went back and I listened to those episodes, and the guests were great. I wasn't. You could tell. You could tell that I was not in a good place back then. And so I decided just to start it over, re-record stuff. And it's been phenomenal. Some of the conversations I've had have been amazing. And the cool thing is that it's also made me more intentional about the conversations I have on a day-to-day basis, because the whole point of the show is cool people that I have great conversations with that I want to share with the world. Well, I have to have those conversations first. And, one thing that's been a big point about this show is if somebody just comes to me and says, hey, I should be a guest on your show because I'm cool, the answer is going to be, no, you're not. Because they shouldn't have to tell me that. But people who've come to me, and it's funny how many people have come to me, and we just have a good conversation. We get on a virtual call, or sometimes we meet in person, and we just have some amazing conversation. I'm like, you know what? How would you like to be a guest on the show? Because the conversation started well. We gelled. We had a good, I could tell that they have a good heart and they're trying to do good things. And there's a lot to that. There's really a lot to that. And so for everybody who's been a guest on the show, I want to thank you so much. For everybody listening, I want to thank you for being here and listening to it. I really appreciate it. I do this a lot for myself, but I do this for other people as well. But for myself, it's like, it's a reason to have another conversation, because if you know me at all, I love to have great conversations. And that's the whole point of the show, really, to be perfectly honest. So let's go ahead and cover some of the things that really stood out, some of the best talking points that I would say that were in the last several months, many months of shows. Again, these are in no order. They just happen to be nuggets that popped out in our list, right? So one of the biggest things was there was a commonality of the power of authentic storytelling. How do you communicate more effectively through story? And of course, we had two video guys that stood out for this. Kuhn, he was on episode 97, and Mario Wilson on episode 89. Both of them did a great job of really sharing the idea and the concept of storytelling. And I think that is really powerful because we learn via stories. We talk about, if you've paid any attention to me at all, I talk about the book The Go-Giver all the time. And one of the biggest reasons that book is so popular is not just the amazing principles and the concepts and the philosophy of how to build relationships, but it's told in a story format. It's told as a parable. And that's what helps really get people involved with it. So in your journey of getting out there, learn how to become a great storyteller. And we're not talking about book smarts. We're talking about just sharing cool stuff. That's all it's really about. The next one, obviously a close one for me, was automation, delegation, and the value of your time. Okay. These are very big things for me because of the fact that is my arena, obviously, especially the automation side. But we had three very different people that talked about this specifically. Scott Neal talked a lot about having systems, SOPs, things like that. He was on episode 88. Now, if you don't know Scott, he is in insurance world. And, our conversation was led a lot around building a good team, or building a great team, I should say. And then he talked about, if you want to be successful and build that team, you got to make it easy for everybody, and you want to make it so things run as smoothly as possible. And that's where, as the boss, learning to automate and delegate as much as possible in order to buy back your time. Michael Stewart had a lot of the same kind of concepts in there about building systems, building SOPs. He was on episode 92. And then Dan Smink in episode 77. He runs a digital marketing agency. And, one of the things that he really talks about, he's been part of big organizations and he's growing his own company. And the biggest things that we all talk about was building SOPs, getting rid of, repetitive tasks, automating what you can, delegating what you can't. And as I like to say it, is automate, delegate, and delete the crap you shouldn't be doing anyway. I phrase that the entrepreneur ADD. But it really has a lot around that. What are you focusing on instead of trying to do all the things? Okay. This was a really good one. And obviously that hits home for me because that's a topic that I talk a lot about. The next big topic that came up was collaboration over competition. And Andy Grider did a great job with this one. It was episode 79. Super, super cool dude. If you have not connected or reached out to him by now, you definitely need to do that. But he talked about the concept of winning together and the power of co-opetition, as he puts it, or collaboration in an event to figure out how can everybody win. Supporting cool people has been a part of this whole thing. The whole reason I have this show is about how can I, share the cool people that I meet with the rest of you that are listening, with the hopes that you might need one of their services, or you might gel with one of them and think, you know what, I really need to know this Andy dude. And building those relationships to see how everybody can grow and how everybody can succeed in the process. So that whole concept of winning together has been a really big, powerful tool in all of this as well. And next one was importance of clear human connection or communication. And this one also, especially with everything that I'm doing with Sevenfold Projects, this one really hit home for me because of the fact that everything we do is really communication. It's everything from, how we communicate via email or in person, just meeting somebody at a networking event. It's all the same. It's all human psychology. And so Dr. Kevin K, he was on episode 82. He talked a lot about this. And then also Julie Jones, episode 94, brought this in. And the two of them talked about not just your marketing, not just your leadership, but how to just have solid communication across the board, no matter how you do it. Because good communication and people skills are non-negotiable in creating a meaningful business or just meaningful success in all. Then we want to go to system structure and scalability. I talked about that kind of a little bit before, but this goes into a bit more. Several guests. We had Scott Neal again, Brian Wright, who was in episode 98. He is a more recent one. He is actually a ghostwriter for helping people get their books published. And then Dan Smink and Michael Stewart, they all stressed the building of strong structures, SOPs, business plans, automation whenever you can. The whole thing about it, and again, this stuff hits home for me, this is the stuff that helps you scale and grow and get rid of the busy work and help you keep your sanity. And then we also had the concept of building with the end in mind. And this is such a powerful, powerful concept in itself. It's so simple, but it isn't as easy as people seem to think it might be until they actually go to do it. Michael Stewart and then also Charles Ambersheka, he was on episode 98. Both of them brought this into play. They talked a lot about how successful entrepreneurs reverse engineer their businesses and define what success looks like, then plan and execute with clear goals, not to get stuck endlessly in the weeds. I think that really has a big one because of the fact that when you can look at what do you want your business or what do you want your life in general to look like, and get very, very granular with this and sit down, put it all together, and write out the details. And I'm talking details, deep details. Then you can turn around and you can reverse engineer. Okay, what do I need to do to make that happen? Great. I know you can find this on YouTube if you look it up. Frank Kern, how I know the name of it, Mass Influence, I think is the name of it. Not Mass Control was his main product. I think it was Mass Influence is the name of the video. And this was a presentation he did at an event forever ago, ages, I don't even know what year. Long, super long time ago. But it was, to this day, it's probably one of the most powerful presentations I've ever seen. And it all talks about how do you create your future? How do you literally map out what it is you want your typical day to look like? And then once you have that, you can reverse engineer the rest of it. Okay, so that's another big one. Highly recommend you check that out. And then we also talked a lot about giving back and the ripple of generosity. And these were ones that, obviously these are important things. These are things that I love talking about because they're so powerful. And so two guests that brought this up significantly were Gwen Leopard in episode 85 and Rachel Garnett in episode 80. And the two of them both really brought this in. They talk about the value of giving back or giving value first and connecting with warmth, being generous with introductions and advice and resources, knowing that it's all going to pay tenfold. You're building a better community. When you can build a better community, everybody thrives in that process. Okay? The next topic was resilience, evolution, and the courage to pivot. I talked about this in several of my own episodes, but also when we had our guest Tracy St. Croix, she was on episode 93. She talked about the bumpy paths, evolving, how to really make a big change. She went from her main business to switching things up drastically to running a radio show. All kinds of different things in that area and what it takes to really be resilient. Okay? And I think right now, in a lot of crazy that's going on in the world, resilience is definitely something we need to focus on. We really need to step up with that. I've even noticed that I've been having a lot more conversations about resilience. And so I think it's important that we pay attention to that kind of stuff. We also talked about connection. Obviously, this is a big one. That's part of Meet Cool People. Real human, intentional connection. Almost every episode we had from the beginning talks about genuine human connection. I talk about the value of breaking bread. Several guests talked about the concept of being intentionally networking and the relationships that come from that. Many of my guests come from the Success Networking, or Success Champions Networking group. It's an organization that I'm part of. And many of the guests came from that because that's where I'm meeting all the cool people, right? So get in front of the right people, get with those crowds, find your tribe, find the people that you really connect with, and that they're going to be there for you when you need them, and you're there for them when they need them. Okay. And then the last real big topic that we had was celebrate your diversity and weirdness. This one came across in a lot of different episodes as well. We talked about your what makes you quirky, what makes you different. There were several episodes with people in the show that I talked about the Renaissance Festival, how I'm a big Ren Fair guy. There was even Andy, I remember him. He actually performs in that. He does sword fighting. And, there's a lot of fun stuff with that. We had Graham, he has an opera background. I do ghostwriting. Rachel is the AI cat lady, right? There's all these we all have these weird quirks about ourselves. And one of the things that for the longest time, people had a hard time with that, you had to fit into a box. And I remember when that was literally, I had to fit in the box. For the longest time, people didn't know anything about my personal life. They knew that, with my first business, which was a web and graphic design agency, they knew I built great websites and I knew computer stuff. That was it. That was exactly what it was, and that's all the message I ever shared. I didn't share my personal stuff. I didn't share my love of blues music, or that I like to go to Ren fairs and, I even dress up and stuff like that. I'm a full-on hardcore nerd, and, I didn't share any of that stuff. They probably assumed, because it's not like it's hard to hide, or it's easy to hide. But we talked a lot about celebrating your diversity, so celebrating your weirdness, and I think that's even a better word for it, to be perfectly honest, because we're all weird, we're all quirky in our own ways. And once you embrace it and you realize that, you're going to find out that your quirkiness may not even be the same as somebody else's quirkiness, but they're just as quirky, and we like each other because of it. And that's a fun thing. That's where people get to really understand each other and get to know each other, and we get to learn from each other, and that's a really big thing. So I'm going to go through a couple of points that I've got here that really tied everything together. Almost every guest emphasized the importance of being your authentic self, no matter how it is, whether it be storytelling, branding, video, leadership. However, be yourself, be true to yourself. Magic happens in the conversations. The best ideas, partnerships, and inspiration are unscripted, sparked from simple, intentional connection. You know what? That is such a true thing. Systems and relationship both matter. This is a big one, especially in today's world. So many people are jumping on the AI world. It's so funny because I've been in the automation world for over 20 years now. But now it's in AI, and everybody's focusing on how can we automate even more. But that's not an excuse to be lazy. That's an excuse to free you from the mundane stuff to have better relationships. Okay, that's where that comes in. It's really important. Also, giving first, following up, and building a community. Those are the cores of success. I'm going to repeat that one because you should be writing it down. Giving first, following up, and building community. Those are the cores of success. Okay. And another one I thought that was really big that came up, a common thread with everything, was there's no single way to succeed. Every guest that I have has had a different way of doing what they're doing. Some people are in the same industry. The vast majority of them are not. But they all have their own unique way of doing it. And then the last one on here is you are the sum of the cool people you meet and connect with. And that pretty much sums up what Meet Cool People all stands for. So I hope that this was, some stuff to reflect on. And I would recommend that you go back and, listen to this again, get a piece of paper and take some notes on some of these things. And if anything specifically grabbed your attention, go back and listen to that episode where we go into a much deeper dive with it. Because I can tell you from my personal experience, I know that these conversations have made my life better. They've strengthened the relationships with those people. They've also strengthened relationships between guests, where I've had one guest, a great example, and I don't have her episode right off the top of my head, but right after Graham Kuhn's episode, Zoe Martin listened to that, and she messaged me and said, "This is awesome. I need to talk to Graham. I think he and I will really connect." And immediately I made sure that I made the connection, and the two of them are chatting up at Storm, having some cool times now. And that's just one example. And so the connections that happen with this kind of stuff has been phenomenal. And I want to thank you for being part of it. I thank you for listening. If you're just here hanging out, listening to the shows, I would love it if you would, comment, share it, do all the things that help us get in front of more people. Because obviously the more people we get in front of, the more cool people we can meet. That's the whole, name of the game. And let me know, if any of the episodes have stood out for you, let me know. And if any of those episodes have helped you in your journey, please let me know. I like to hear that stuff. To all of my guests that have been in the first 100 episodes, it's crazy to think that I've hit that far. Thank you. I thank you so much for being part of it and helping me in this journey. Like I said, this had a false start 3 years prior to kicking it off. And it still blows me away that this is episode 100, because I had no clue what to expect when I launched it. I just knew it was time. I decided to do it, and I had been consistent. I had made sure that an episode has gone live every week, even if I'm scrambling last minute to do edits and did a recording of my own show, which happens. And the cool thing is those turned out to be good things, because I had people coming back to me and thanking me for those episodes, because then there was something a little bit more deeper dive into a specific topic, stuff that I've been playing with, stuff that's going on in my head. And luckily, and I'm grateful for the fact that those are things that have also resonated with other people, that lets me know that I'm not alone in this. And I think that that's one of the things I want to wrap up with here, is that another big point with most of the guests that I've had on the show, many of them have talked about like what their journey looked like. And it's not all rainbows. Everybody goes through their journey. Everybody has pluses and minuses. They have ups and downs. A roller coaster is always moving. That's a good quote. I should probably keep that one. I'm going to have to go back and transcribe that so I don't forget. But we all go through these points, especially most of my people are entrepreneurs of some level. And not everybody, but the mass majority of them are. And we understand that things are different for us. We're wired differently. We have different commitments. We have different priorities. And not everybody understands that. And so when you can listen to the stories that other people have, and it's the good and the bad, hearing the issues, the downfalls of things that happened from other people, it's not, obviously we don't want just that, but that is a part of the hero's journey. We want to know where those came from, because of the fact, it's not because we like to hear the bad parts, but it's relieving, I guess is a good word, when we know somebody else went through the same BS that we did. And so I hope that that's, all of this stuff comes together, and I hope that these are lessons that you've gotten out of this, is some value you've gotten out of the show. So with that said, again, I thank you very much. I appreciate it. As always, if there's anything I can do to help you out, reach out, let me know. And hopefully, we'll stick around for at least another 100 shows. Take care. And that wraps up another Meet Cool People show. Now, if you like what you heard, be sure to give us a like, subscribe, or review so I can help introduce these amazing cool people to even more amazing cool people. And just remember, meeting cool people is just the beginning. You need to have a system in place to follow up with the amazing people that you meet. This is exactly what we do for our clients. Now, if you'd like to see if my team and I can help you, go to convertmoreclientsnow.com and check out the case study video to see exactly how we're helping our clients turn casual connections into cash clients for life. Again, go to convertmoreclientsnow.com and see how we can work together to turn you into a follow-up rock star.